their conscious mind may agree initially, right? So their ego may agree initially, right? But then whatever things that are stuck within their subconscious, whether that is they're not good enough, they're not worthy, emotionally starved, whatever the case may be, all of those things are going to come up to be dealt with, and that patient's ego is going to be activated.
And welcome back to another episode of the Charyse Williams Show. Oh my goodness, you guys, I have the most amazing guest for you guys. Today we're going to be talking about transitioning from reactive to proactive care and really the importance of that. So let me introduce to you my very special guest. It is none other than Dr. Erica Steele, who is a board-certified naturopathic doctor. She is also the founder of Holistic Life App, an innovative wellness platform that combines technology with personalized integrative healthcare. With over 20 years of experience in holistic medicine and 7 degrees in her field, she is a thought leader in the holistic medicine space. Welcome, 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 Dr. Steele. Hey.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. It is such a delight. It's always great to be in your space. And I just have to tell the listeners really quickly, I'm just gonna call you Dr. Erica because we'll call you Dr. Erica. Yeah, we met inside of a Facebook group, and something that she posted hit me, hit my soul. And so I jumped over into Messenger, and then we just started talking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It was like kindred spirits. Mm-hmm. And you know how when you just meet somebody and you just click? It was kind of like that. And the conversation went on for a while, and then you were like, you have a second? You want to hop on the phone? I'm like, yeah, sure. So we get on the phone and we're just kind of talking away, all things holistic health, functional medicine, and I knew at that point, I'm like, okay, I've got to have her on the podcast. So I'm so pleased to have you here today.
Yay, I know. I'm thankful that you asked me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So let's just kind of jump in. I know that you've been in the holistic health space for over 20 years, as I mentioned. Kind of take us through your journey, if you will.
Yeah. So I think it's important to mention when I first got into holistic medicine, I was young. I was a child, right? So my mother was a nurse. She's a social worker now, but she was actually at an HBCU going on to become a doctor. And she had a psych break, unfortunately, when I was 8 years old. But before that, I ran around labs with her. I went to organic chemistry classes. We were very involved. When she had that psych break, then all of a sudden it was actually one of her psychologists who recommended she return back to her roots. And so that's when we began to go back to our Afro-Indigenous practices. So I grew up understanding there was the science that you could prove or disprove, but then there was this natural kind of mystical healing process that seemed like it worked, but we didn't necessarily know how to prove it. So I eventually left my home when I was 16. I enrolled in massage school. I was one of the youngest students in my class, actually. And that was kind of my introduction to natural medicine, holistic medicine, as you call it, is really working through body work. And I always love to say that doing body work for so many years is really like Braille for the body, because you really begin to learn the textures and the nuances and habits and that sort of thing. And I'm very causative minded, right? And so I found I did a lot of manual therapy and physical health, sports health, that kind of thing. But my patients weren't getting better, and they were just kind of using me like a pill. So I worked with a chiropractor, worked with a lot of chiropractors, and they suggested I go back to school for nutrition. So then I started that, and then I got a degree. It just kind of kept going. And that's really been my evolution, if you will. It's been me working with patients and kind of getting stuck and needing more tools in my tool bag.
Yes.
And going to school to extend, even more. Even when I got out of my doctorate degrees, I heavily focused on functional and integrative medicine and laboratory sciences as a naturopath. And even after I got out from all of that, it really became clear to me that public health was very much, in my zone, especially because the ACA had come out when I first got out, and we were in all of the upheaval of that and the there. So it's really like my career has, again, it's been, just really progressive in the sense of what's going on, but I've been really intuitively led. So really bringing in a lot of the practices that I learned as a child and then infusing them with education and science and all of that. So
yeah, I love that. I love that. And you touched on at the very beginning, you touched on your background, your culture of Afro-Indigenous culture. So I would love to just kind of spend a few minutes kind of talking a little bit about what are some of the things that either like your mom or your grandma or your community would do for certain ailments, and because it wasn't just let's grab a pill. It's like, no, let's go in the garden, right? Let's go grab this root or whatever the flower, root, stem, seed,
right, salve, all kinds of stuff.
Absolutely.
As a child I struggled with scoliosis pretty bad. And I was very heavy chested. I kind of grew, I just blew up out of nowhere in terms of that. And so my mom would make a lot of salves and do a lot of hands-on healing and Reiki and meditation. But then also too, we did a lot of, sweat lodges and vision quest. And, I learned prayer ties and all of our chanting and really connecting with spirit, creator, God was really important, supporting my mom through different dances, the sun moon dance, supporting, working with her in terms of tending the fire. So, you'd have to tend a fire for like a ceremony. And so just a lot of different things, were learned, but it was all kind of based off of this premise that you are your own healer, right?
And we forget that.
Oh my gosh.
That's so not even part of Western or allopathic medicine. And that is the biggest piece. Once we understand our innate ability to heal and our innate ability that is a game changer in and of itself. But when we become disconnected as we have, and we don't even understand or recognize our healing power, it's now we're at the whim of someone or something outside of us that is here, take this pill, or here, do this, right? And we've lost that connection. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we really give our power away, sadly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so even though there was all other confusions around power, but I really learned that I was the keeper of my own power, right? And that I could heal myself if I provide the right environment that was conducive for healing, right?
Absolutely.
So, and eating healthy and physical fitness. Both my parents were Marines as well.
Mine too. I did not know that.
That's so funny.
When I tell you, we have so many similarities. Yes, my mom and dad were both Marines. Yeah.
Right. So you kind of know the drill, so to speak, right? Yeah, exactly. It's very disciplined. It's very structured. There's a lot of things I think back then I didn't appreciate, but as an adult, I go, yeah, that really, really helped. Right. Yeah. But yeah, having both Marines as parents, being also a very sensitive, intuitive child, that was kind of wild. So we learned the value also of mental health, of discipline, of structure, of like I said, fitness, nutrition, those sorts of things. My parents were vegetarians when I was growing up, so we didn't really, of course we had unhealthy food like everybody else, but majority of my diet growing up was fruits and vegetables. Back when you sat and you actually ate around the dinner table and it was still a big deal. And so a lot of the things that we unfortunately take for granted, or even just don't even know exist anymore, was really a part of, we're around the same age, and we're that last generation before the internet kind of took over the world. We still kind of remember when life, was a little bit simpler. We were running around and playing outside, exactly, riding bikes, and you couldn't keep us indoors. Now it's like trying to get children outside.
I know.
Yeah. So,
but you know what? That even speaks to our topic, which is being more proactive rather than reactive. But there was so much wisdom in even what you shared about. You grew up eating fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. Even sitting around the table having discussion, family time, community, all of that is part of healing. I mean,
Right.
it really is. And so, and we've gotten away from it. It was interesting. My son, my 26-year-old, he is about to move into a different apartment. And so he's been, kind of apartment shopping. And he said the other day, he was like, Mom, I just realized, he says, most of these apartments now, they don't have a place for a dining room table. He
Hmm.
was like, it's a living room, and then like you just are kind of expected to sit around the bar. And I'm like, huh,
Right.
interesting, because his apartment now has he does have a table. He's like, so I'm not gonna need my table anymore.
Right.
But even that, I guess you could sit around a bar, but you're side by side, not even face to, you don't even have that face to face interaction.
Right. Well, and too, like people are so hectic and busy with their schedules now,
Yeah,
trying to get, I mean, even the kids, some of these kids' schedules are more insane than some adults.
it's so
And
true.
so getting everyone in one location to sit around, because it was like an established time every single
Mm-hmm.
night,
Mm-hmm.
after the street lights are on, all
Yep,
that kind of stuff.
exactly.
You clean up, you come in, you sit down around the table, you have a discussion, good, bad, or indifferent how the
Right.
discussion went. But
Exactly.
nonetheless, you shared about your day and what was going on. And so there was a greater sense of family, community,
For sure.
those sorts of things. Now, again, like there's also other external factors, of course,
Sure. The
with
world
all
has changed.
the stresses of life. But I
Yeah.
think fundamentally speaking, we still held on, somewhat to that sense of community and that sense of family and structure. And now it's just kind of all out the window, and every man, dog, cat,
For
child for themselves.
themselves. It's so
Right.
true. It's so true. So why is being more proactive as a provider, right? Why from your perspective, why are you so passionate about being more proactive rather than reactive in how you deliver care?
Yeah. Well, that old adage, prevention, what is it? Prevention is worth an
That's
ounce of cure, or something
yeah,
like
something
that.
like that.
Yeah, and also when I learned biochemistry, that was a real game changer for me, because I said, why is it that we're waiting? Like we can see the body manifesting things,
Absolutely.
right?
Right.
So why are we waiting until things become a bigger problem and then
Mhm.
jumping in? Wouldn't
Right.
common sense be to slow down the progression sooner, right?
Mhm.
And
As
then
soon
get
as
it
you see it trending, like if
right.
you're paying attention, you can see things. You talk about your background in labs, and so you can see things trending. But
Right.
you're so right. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. I get
No,
so
no.
excited and passionate about
Excited.
this as
Yeah.
well. But it's like, yeah, why are we waiting till now you have a diagnosis? Well, we
Right.
could have stepped in 5 years ago.
Right. And it's that diagnose and manage model, which is,
Right.
and I don't know if in allopathy, in Latin, that means heroic measure. So
Mm.
save you at all cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, the way that the healthcare system, which was designed by Rockefeller, as you know,
Right.
has been executed is they're really most allopathic providers who are not cross-trained, of course, they can't see the body developing those disease processes.
Yeah.
So by the time they do see it or hear it or acknowledge it, the house is so on fire. And
Yep.
by that time, as you know, sometimes it could be a runaway train. And so
Yes.
then, we're healing out of fear instead of faith. And so again, we're giving our power away. We're, oh my gosh, now I have to do all these, special tests and monitor all these things. And now I have to take all these medications and all these things, rather than I'm working on my health. My health is a state that I'm creating every single day. I'm accountable and responsible to it. I'm managing my health, my water, my food, my sleep,
Sleep.
etc.
Yeah.
Right, all the things to be able to build my health rather than react. And now I'm fighting against disease.
Yeah.
So it's really more of a lifestyle, and it's about teaching our patients that this is a lifestyle. Like I used to tell people, like when I had a brick and mortar family, I said, you cannot pay me enough to walk around with you all day and tell you sit up straight, drink that, don't do that, all these things, because and oftentimes patients would be like, oh, I wish you could come home with me. And I'd be like, no, like you can't afford me.
Right.
Because people really, again, people don't want to be responsible. They're
I
kind
know.
of, they're
Well,
kind
I
of
think we've been so conditioned. No, I
right,
get it. I think we've been so conditioned, again, giving away our power and
right,
looking for the pun intended, magic pill outside of us. And then what you just mentioned, those basic foundational pillars of health,
Right.
sleeping, hydrating,
Right.
out sunlight,
Right.
just those, and eating real whole foods, right? Those basic foundational. And I had a client once, and it was a holistic health coaching client, and she was like, "Well, are we going to do? Or when are we going? We have been working together for maybe, I don't know, 3 weeks or so." And she said, "Well, when are we going to when are you going to when are we going to get into some more and more important things?" I said, No. I said, "So I'll explain this to you in the simplest way I can." I said, "You're wanting me to teach you trigonometry and calculus." And I said, "And we're not even adding and subtracting very well right now. So you can't get to, those higher levels of math if you don't have basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, division skills. We can't go there. I can't teach you that." And so, but it was just a reminder to me how we've been so conditioned that, we need some fancy. Listen, I can run all the specialty tests. I can put you on tons of different protocols. But at the end of the day, if your body's not hydrated, if you're not sleeping, if we're not addressing these foundational pillars of health, it's going to be for naught. I mean, you might get a little bit better, yes, but you can't skip over that.
Yeah, and even to extend this, so when I was in practice again, when I moved, I crash landed in Virginia, by the way, in 2008, 2009, like around the housing market situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so Virginia really was like back in the 50s, like for real. Like they weren't really health conscious. Like it was like deep fried Twinkies.
Oh gosh.
Oreos. Oh yeah, I didn't even know you could deep fry certain things. Yeah,
well, you could deep fry anything. I'm from the South. No,
right. Well, clearly, I was, clutch my pearls. So anyway, I, crash landing in Virginia really humbled me a lot as a provider because, California it's all about health. It's all about, like it's bikini season all year round. Like there's all this vanity or whatever, which good and bad. But coming to Virginia, it was definitely a culture shock. And I had gone back and forth, but I think starting a practice there and being a doctor there was not that much natural health. There was like a health food store that everybody went to, but it was kind of like where those people go. Like
those other people. Those
right.
That's so funny.
They still have like, they would stand out in front of yoga classes, like, protect Jesus kind of thing, like, okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it was still pretty, woo woo to do that kind of stuff. But I was very determined to help people in Virginia, simply because I saw the atrocities of the healthcare system. Virginia is really strong, and obviously in research and stuff like that. We have EVMS and that kind of thing. But there's real stop gaps when it comes to public health. People just don't know what they don't know. So I went from being at that time I was like a raw food vegan, going from that to I was like,
huge proponent of raw food, but go ahead.
And healthy. Yeah. So, I'm no longer that now, but
good. We'll take you back whenever you're ready. No, I'm just teasing.
Oh, no.
I'm teasing.
Oh my gosh. That's a whole nother episode. Anyway. So I went from like, oh, great, you only ate fast food 3 times this week, right? And really slowing it down for people and making it accessible without shame, without blame. And I find that the things that providers miss a lot are regulating the nervous system, the polyvagal theory, working with patients on their mindset from that reactive to that proactive space, which requires working with them on their emotional intelligence and working with them on how to self-soothe and regulate their emotions and not being in that reactive state. Like I used to see when patients would come in, I could tell their adrenals were already shot, because they would hit the door and they would be running a mile a minute. Okay. All right. What am I doing? What am I going here? What do I need to get? And I'd be like, okay, so the first thing we need to do is breathe. Right. And they're like, okay, yeah. So I'm doing that and next. And I'm like, no. And I think a lot of times patients will, they weaponize their anxiety. And if a provider is not strong in their own, clinical practice, but also their personal practice, because you can't teach what you don't practice yourself. I don't care what it is.
Nope.
So if you're not really secure in your own sense of self, your own agency, you're going to allow the patients to bully you, right?
Yeah.
You're going to allow those patients to run over you, and you're going to miss, because what happens is you can skip over, the nervous system regulations and the mental mindset and the emotional intelligence. If you skip over those, it's not going to last long term. They're going to crash and burn eventually. They're going to sabotage themselves. Yep. And then they're going to be looking at you like, well, why didn't you fix me? Right. And then you have to go in the whole discussion. I'm not broke. You're not broken. And also I'm not God. And that's between you and God and your protocol. So, like,
right. It's all But you're so right, and you hit the nail on the head, and it gets overlooked because it's not taught. It's not taught traditionally, right? Unless you go out and seek it, like nervous system regulation. I don't think I even heard. Well, I was gonna say I don't even think I heard about the nervous system in nursing school. That's not true. I heard about the nervous system, overview. But in the context of what we're speaking of today, Dr. Erica, and the importance of regulating your nervous system, understanding there isn't a nervous system, and then knowing how to regulate your nervous system, and understanding how a dysregulated nervous system plays into every part of your body, every part of your healing, right? And so I'm so glad that you brought the discussion of nervous system regulation even into this conversation, because I know there's a lot of nurses and nurse practitioners that listen, and unless they've sought out that, they don't have any idea. I didn't have any idea.
Exactly. And very simply for your listeners who are not, necessarily aware. So going back to that polyvagal theory, right? We have our sympathetic, our parasympathetic, fight or flight, rest and digest. We can't heal in a fight or flight state. So if we're in survival mode, right? So if any of those Maslow's needs, right, our safety, security, all of those things are not met, it's going to be really difficult to get that patient out of that fight or flight reactive state. Right. And so we can't heal in that state. And so whether that is self-created, right, or past traumas, because a lot of times,
the above,
when we see a lot of the patients that are just running, a lot of times they're running from themselves and they're running from their emotions. And we saw that, full stop through COVID, right? Yeah. When everybody was running, and then boom, everybody is forced to stop
and be with themselves. You're like,
right. And people were shocked. And like, how many people were like, I don't really, who are you? Why are you in my house, sort of thing? And, there was a lot more divorces going on and, unfortunately domestic situations and that sort of thing. But it forced people to slow down. And if they use that opportunity to really get present with themselves, unfortunately, we are not taught. I mean, hello, we're children of Marines. Like emotions, I don't know about your Marines, but my Marines emotions were not a thing.
Right.
And so
growing up, for emotions to be emotions are expensive.
What are you doing? Like, you're self-destructing here. So pull yourself together. What is it? Break you down to build you back up.
That's the motto.
All the crazy. Like, you look back and I go, oh my God, these people should not have had a job. Anyway, so I mean,
but they did the best they,
right.
The tools that they had.
All the things. right. Exactly. Thank God for my therapist. Just kidding. So, the thing is that, we just have to make sure, right, that we are filling in and teaching people, especially with their inner child, right? Mm-hmm. So if they were not taught to validate their emotions, acknowledge their emotions, self-soothe, a lot of times people will go to food to self-soothe.
Or alcohol. Absolutely.
Right, exactly. Alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, all the things, right? Right. I mean, exactly. Overworking, over-exercising. Like, there's so many different habits. And, I think sometimes we assume, because a patient's kind of hyper healthy, right? They're super compliant, that is a strong suit. And again, those patients are really tricky because, again, they're so used to being in action mode because they don't want to slow down and feel. So they're very disconnected from their emotions. So, and I learned that our thoughts create our emotions,
Absolutely.
right? Our emotions create our actions create our habits create our behaviors, and then eventually our long-term lifestyles.
Right.
So if you want to shift a
And
patient's lifestyle, exactly,
Yeah.
you have to work on the mindset and slowing patients down, which means that when they stop, just like through COVID, all those emotions are going to start bubbling up, and it's our job to give them tools. And there's so many tools, like, just box breathing, right?
Yes.
Or let's see, alternate
nostril breathing. Absolutely.
Or yoga, right? Or humming, to regulate, or cold plunges, because that really regulates the sympathetic.
Even grounding, just taking your shoes off and go put your feet in the dirt or the grass.
Exactly. Going in nature. And so I think that sometimes providers, again, they want to jump to the testing, they want to jump to the supplements, and I actually withhold those things. Obviously, we do the testing, up front with consultation, but the supplements don't come until their third appointment. Because I want to build that foundation with them, with their mindset and with their food.
Absolutely.
And learning how to nourish themselves, and not learning how to abuse themselves, because a lot of people have learned how to abuse themselves using food. And so slowing them down, helping them to use that voice and that communication. Otherwise it becomes a two-way channel. Either they're going to express themselves and what they're thinking and what they're feeling, or they're going to shove it down, and usually shove it down with unhealthy food and all the things we discussed.
So true.
So there's so much nuance with that, and they can be really difficult conversations with patients. I don't know about you, but I've been cussed out quite a bit. And so
I can't say I've been cussed out, but I've been given the look.
Oh, they're very nice to you. Oh no. To me, they don't miss a beat. Especially men that are kind of a little bit older, set in their ways. Who does this woman think she is? Because there's very much an energetic shift that's happening. And we also have to keep in mind there's intergenerational trauma that's attached to all of this.
And that's never discussed.
Never.
And it plays such a massive part in our everyday being, but even more so in our healing journey.
Right. So. Absolutely. And so that intergenerational trauma and that piece, and especially as Black people, looking at our slave diet, looking at our attachment to food and how we've used food, as a sense of comfort, but also kind of a reclamation in a lot of ways. And so helping people to dismantle that. And then even looking on that genetic level as well, and the methylation patterns and things like that, which are impacts of intergenerational traumas. So I think, there is a lot to unpack. And I think the more that providers can be organized, can be structured, can have a process that they go through. Like, for instance, I do my initial consultation, then I do my review. My first appointment typically is about mindset and food, right? Again, it's not about now we're going to put you on a whole bunch of supplements, and the patients will kind of be antsy and they want it.
But when are we get to the good part? Like my one patient, I'm like, no. This is the good part. This is the
right, exactly. And those are the things that are so missed in reactive care, right? So because it's fast. I've got, however, 1 unit of time, 2 units of time. I only have 15 minutes of time based off the insurance model. And so I got to go ahead and get this done really quick. And so really organizing it, structuring it, building a system. I found, mindset, water, food based off of their macros. And the other thing too is tracking, right? So that's why I have an app. It's like, if this isn't tracked, it doesn't exist. And patients groan and they don't like it, and they kick and scream and they do all the things. But the real thing is that this is to hold you accountable, to educate you, but also to be able to coach you properly. Because if we don't have these numbers, how do we know what's going to be effective? Those numbers, and I'll land here, those numbers literally saved patients' lives during COVID. Because as you know, we couldn't rely on the CDC. We couldn't rely on NIH. We were getting mixed messages every day. One day it lives on services. The next day it doesn't live on services. Then it doesn't. and again, I had a public health degree, I'd already gone through all of that education. So my little public health brain is like going insane and like, doing all the things, right? Way extra, all the things. And it really, I really understood how much our system is systemically racist, especially with the pulse oximeters not working properly, not getting enough, oxygen, that sort of thing. Also, some of the things that my patients were reporting from the hospital, being coerced and threatened and yelled at.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It was a pressure cooker.
Oh yeah.
Because the system was failing. The providers weren't getting the support that they needed.
Right.
So what's going to happen if the providers don't have that moral support? Of course, it's going to trickle down to the patient. The patient care is lost.
Right.
So again, we know that there are vulnerabilities and weaknesses within our healthcare system. And that was during the last hurrah, right? And now we are in the throes of dismantling public health as we know it, which is just devastating to watch from the sidelines. But it's going to be even more important for us to teach our patients, again, the basics, right? Understanding their personal data, right? You don't need a doctor to understand what your numbers mean. I mean, yes, a doctor is great, but there are going to be access issues. There's going to be cost issues. And so I really just, again, being proactive is not just thinking about what I can do today. It's about 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, and how can I impact things positively within healthcare and be able to hand these patients. And when I really teach patients, motivate them, inspire them, and they start to learn and they learn how their body works, they get so excited and start teaching their friends and teaching their families and teaching their communities. And that is really what it's about.
It is, and it becomes a movement. Like literally, it becomes a movement, and they're so empowered. Going back to your app that you mentioned, yes, it's the accountability, but when you start to see that progress, that's so very empowering, right?
It's so rewarding.
It is so rewarding, and again, that trickles down, as you just mentioned, to their kids and the people in the house with them, and the people that work with them, and again, it just expands and expands and expands, and again, that's how we change the state of health,
and
the state of health care. So
absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, again, like we, especially with all the canceled studies and, DEI studies and whatever that means and whatever that is, we're not going, and we haven't even really, I mean, we just know that this is looming, right? Because studies, we don't recognize, but it takes years, hundreds of thousands of dollars for studies. We get the benefit of studies after the fact.
Right.
But if you have a, health agency that is problematic, unqualified, unexperienced, systemically racist, the whole nine, what's going to happen, down the road? So right now, really investing as providers into remote patient monitoring is so key. So again, we have an app, right? And we can pretty much set up a triage in a patient's home, right with the app. We can set up, blood pressure, heart rate. I can even do an EKG, ECG remotely, so there are so many different things that we can do. And even syncing with Apple Health, Health is amazing. And the amount of data that they give on the app is really great. And so again, not to overwhelm the patients, but start them off with a couple metrics, understanding, okay, my 10,000 steps and half my body weight in ounces in water. And maybe I'm going to track my heart rate. And people don't realize, because we focus on high numbers always, like high hypertension, numbers or high heart rate numbers. But we don't realize that those low numbers, those subclinical numbers, when it's below what it needs to be, is actually chronic stress load on the body. And so that lets us know, hey, this patient is overly stressed and they're compartmentalizing. So we really need to work with this patient on understanding how to regulate their stress in a healthy way. So what I love about science, healthcare, therapeutic process is that there is data that we can use to track to see if what we're doing is working or not working. And again, that helped us so much through COVID. We had software, right? We could literally run reports to see who was cardiometabolic and immune system compromised. We were able to call all of those patients, get them on protocols, boom. So when the reactivity is necessary, you have the data to be able to make the decisions. And I think that's the difference between where we've been in healthcare, which is very, again, providers are beholden to the CDC, beholden to NIH, beholden to AMA, beholden to these institutions.
Most of pharmaceuticals.
With no questions asked,
Yeah.
right? Rather than kind of coming back to self, coming back to basics, and really getting back to the roots of healthcare.
Yeah.
I love more of our Afro-Indigenous practices in terms of returning people back to their cultural roots, their cultural foods. I notice even like patients from South America do much better with their herbals, right?
Yeah.
Let's say more so patients from Europe, which do better with homeopaths, right? So I think also bringing in that cultural piece is super important. I know I've said a lot, so but yeah, just really, I think if we can reinvent how we look at healthcare and we ourselves can be revolutionary in that, because again, and I've said this before, people get mad at me, but the healthcare system is collapsing. It's ineffective. It's been ineffective for a long time. It's very dangerous. Systemically, it's dangerous for Black people. Commonwealth Fund Study 2024, 52% subpar care across 25 health metrics, worse in the South. Now, also too, most of those health metrics are not attached to health, believe it or not. They're attached to vaccine compliance. They're attached to, do they have insurance coverage? Those are the metrics that they're looking at, not necessarily the actual integrity or the actual health of the people that are in the system. So I'm sure the people in the system, right, are even, less healthy. And we know that chronic disease rates are literally the drivers of our healthcare system, and why our healthcare system is so flawed, because the system is doing exactly as the system was designed.
Exactly.
Right. It's to diagnose and manage the patient. It's never to treat, reverse, or heal disease. And so I think, again, as providers, shifting out of this diagnose and manage model into more of a prevention model, into a proactive model, into more of a data-driven model, into more of an education-based model, which means that you have to learn these things yourself, right?
Yeah, right. To your point, you can't teach what you don't know. Which is, again, it's and you've said so much, and I just appreciate everything that you have shared. But it does start with us, right? It starts with us, and getting more tools in our toolbox. And then here's the thing: I just want to drive this home, because I talk with tons of nurses and nurse practitioners on a daily basis, and you can be a work in progress and support other people at the same time. Okay. Absolutely. There's no destination. Like there's no upper limits to health or to wellness. Like, okay, I finally made it. Now I can help someone. No, you learn how your body shifts and responds to box breathing or alternate nostril breathing. And then you go teach somebody that in real time. Like, don't wait.
Right. And I think for me, I spent years like facing myself with patients, right? Because patients would show up right where I was at in the process. And so having to look deeper, having to heal, having to commit my life to, and that's really where my childhood really came in handy, because we were taught ultimately we're responsible for all things, good or bad, right? So having that radical responsibility, and being able to have resilience and have grit and be able to, self-reflect and look to see what's working, what's not working, and what the presence of which would make a difference to help. And that's honestly how I got all of my education was, working with people going, okay, we've gotten to a certain point. What's missing that I need? What tool do I need to be able to help these people heal? And so it just led me down such this huge rabbit hole. I didn't initially call myself a holistic doctor. I have been a naturopath for a long time. But as I went through all the education of psychology and clinical hypnotherapy and NLP and all of these other tools, family constellation, all these different tools and functional medicine, integrated medicine, all this stuff, it really began to expand where now I have tools to address the physical health of the patient, the environmental health, the mental health, the emotional health, the spiritual health, and then even the ancestral health with subjective and objective finding. So having both of those standards, mixed method approach, really makes it very secure and stable where, again, kind of, even though they're not studies per se, but these little kind of microcosm of study teaching patients. And then of course you see patterns, right? Over all the thousands of food tracking that I've looked at, most patients, they will go into a calorie deficit, so not eat enough calories, fill up with fat, which overworks their gallbladder, overworks their liver, overworks their pancreas, and then deficient in protein. So then their immune system and their repairing and healing is exactly. And so seeing those patterns, right, again and again and again, you kind of already know going into it, but you're still using the data to be able to confirm what you know or don't know about the patient. And so it's really, I haven't minded, if you will, going to the edge, right? Some practitioners, I think, are a little bit more, they play it safe. I look at a lot of different things and read energy and all the things. And so pushing that envelope so that
because everything is connected. That's the thing. I mean, that really is the premise of holistic health.
Exactly.
Right. Which again, it's totally, opposite. It literally is really contradictory to how we've been trained traditionally. It's like, oh, you got a cardiac problem? Go to the cardiologist. Oh, you got some gut issues? Oh, let's see the GI. And it's like, wait, what? Okay. But who's going to address it as a whole? Right.
Absolutely.
So I love even hearing the other components that you particularly use as you're working with your patients or clients. So
absolutely. And it was the Catholic Church and Descartes who originally took out the mind-body medicine piece. So they're the ones that separated the mind from the body. And we haven't really integrated it back in. You've got psychologists over here kind of working in their silos. You've got psychiatrists working in their silos, and then your GPs over here. And so again, the system is broken. It is working the way that it's intended to work. So for me, it was about stepping out of those boxes. I carefully curated all of my education as well to make sure that I wasn't limiting myself just in terms of the style practice and what I wanted to do, etc. I really wanted more freedom to be able to practice, especially in a post-colonized healthcare system. We're kind of piecing things together. And so because long time ago, before we were even born and the healthcare system were still in development, all of our practices in Afro-Indigeneity were considered, barbaric, were considered not healthy, were considered uncivilized, all of these things. But those were the things that actually helped us to heal. And so now we're in this colonialized system, right, where people don't realize that their body can heal anymore. They still have a fear that, I need to go get a diagnosis and then I can heal, right? They're so fixated on that particular system because that's been the conditioning the whole time. So I think it's about people coming back to themselves, whether you're a provider or a patient, right? Go back to your corners, go back to your sandbox and focus on self and prioritize and slow the pace down for sure. You're always going to kind of half as fast, if you will, as you think, because you want to go, you've got this big treatment plan, you've got XYZ different phases and all this stuff, and you want to check these boxes off. But you also have to realize too, you're working with humans, and humans don't walk in and tell you their whole life story, for crying out loud. It's taken me sometimes years for patients to admit that they are in abusive relationships or they're alcoholics or whatever. And it's after all of that trust building that we kind of get to those points. But the last thing I'll say here is don't be afraid of the ego. So the mind is broken up into three sections: the primitive mind, the subconscious mind, and the conscious mind. And the conscious mind, it holds our ego. Those are our defense mechanisms, right? But it's only 12% of our awareness. Their subconscious mind, which again develops between 0 and 8 years old, that is about 88% of our conscious awareness. And so when we go to try to make changes for our patients, right, their conscious mind may agree initially, right? So their ego may agree initially, right? But then whatever things that are stuck within their subconscious, whether that is they're not good enough, they're not worthy, emotionally starved, whatever the case may be, all of those things are going to come up to be dealt with, and that patient's ego is going to be activated. Absolutely. So again, and not to be afraid of pushing those barriers, because really in those situations, it's almost a matter of life and death, because we don't know what we don't know. And so that patient's ego is holding them in a protective state.
Yeah.
And so if we don't start to challenge that and press on that and push that, and again, like I said, I've been cussed out a lot. The thing is that the truth will first piss you off. And my mom used to say this, the truth will first piss you off, but then it will set you free. Yeah. So don't be afraid to push those barriers. Obviously stay professional and all of those things.
Right.
But I think it's important that we not play it too safe, because there are people's lives on the line, and if patients are lying to us, it's because they're lying to themselves. Right. I used to take it so personally, and that's honestly how I got into all the data, because originally patients wouldn't track their food. I would just take them on their honor system, and then we get their labs back, and their labs were trash, and then they're looking at me, and I'm like, oh no, I'm a master at this thing. Yeah. So I know you have not been eating your 100 grams of protein, Mrs. Jones. Don't lie to me, lie to your mom and me. So, and so I started to track, to hold those patients accountable so that they could get the results. But when I started to do that and press on that ego boy, a lot of things started to show up for people. So don't be afraid. Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't feel like, oh, I did something wrong because this patient's upset with me. No.
But one thing I always share, with anybody really, is that change happens at the speed of safety, right? So to your point about ego, your ego is fighting for its life to keep things the way they are, because it's safe, although it may not be healthy or beneficial. It's safe because it's familiar, right? And anytime we're trying to do something that's different, our ego is going to be like, wait a minute, hold on, we're not doing that. Right. and I oftentimes say, it starts to self-sabotage, but really self-sabotage is self-preservation. It's like, wait, I don't want to, I'm not trying to, hinder our progress. I just my job is to keep us safe. And the only way for me to keep us safe is to stay where we are, because we know what that is. Right. So just remember that change happens at the speed of safety. So make it safe. One of the ways, nervous system, making it safe with your nervous system, right? And building that trust with your patients, our clients. So this has been such a beautiful conversation, Dr. Erica. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I know people are listening right now like, oh my God, how can I, get this app, or how can I, stay connected? And we'll definitely make sure that we drop all of your social media handles down below in the show notes. Cool. But what's the best way for people to connect?
I'm pretty out there, as you can tell. I mean, right now I'm kind of on a downtime in between content shifts, but for the summer or whatever. But usually most platforms, on YouTube, on TikTok, on IG. Now, different platforms are curated for different audiences, of course. So, YouTube is probably a little bit more safer, a little bit more like, general population. TikTok, definitely, I speak a lot more about systemic racial issues. I do a lot more debating on TikTok, that kind of thing, just because there's so much miseducation out there. And so making sure people also have a visible resource, especially as this big, beautiful bill and the access issues start to take hold. And this is something that I did through COVID. I mean, I did 24-hour education. I probably will never go back to that again, but, because it was just it was just such a pressure cooker. I think now the second Trump presidency, I was more prepared, because I survived barely through the first one. Because again, the system, it's like, I kind of always visualize like Bam Bam from the Flintstones.
Yeah.
It's just bam, 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 bam. And so there's it's breaking stuff and not knowing how it was built to begin with, or even a strategy. In public health, it's all about being proactive and having, systems and processes in place. And we have none of that. Those safety nets are gone. And, people don't understand holistically, right? When you cut them off of health insurance, when you continue to pollute because you're deregulating corporations. So now the environment is being impacted, right? Their food, their water, food prices because of immigration is climbing, right? So access issues of healthy food, alligator Alcatraz, you've got how many bodies of people, in pretty much an environmental preserve, all kinds of mosquitoes living, breathing, breeding, all kinds of fun things. So, like we have, and then we don't believe in vaccines, and again, like I hate the term anti-vax. I think it's like so demonizing, because my thing is we should have informed consent across the board. Yeah. We should be able to look at any medical treatment individually for the patient to see what works and what doesn't work. But unfortunately, we have a healthcare regime right now that really markets off of conspiracy theories and misinformation, and is backed by a lot of health influencers, and it's just a giant grift. So I think, again, making sure that providers are prepared for what's coming and prepare their patients, because their access is going to be inhibited and limited. Wait times are going to go up. Their private health insurance is also going to go up. Our premiums are going to go up. There's going to be a lot of systemic issues that now is the time. It's what, August. So in September, October is when we need to start preparing our patients' immune systems and getting them prepared for those winter months, because when those, when the weather drops, that's when everybody's immune system that isn't stable is going to start going, haywire. And again, with public confidence in public health being so diminished, again, like, would I love to see a world without any inoculations? Absolutely. Are there certain patient populations that absolutely need it? Absolutely. And so making sure that we're all safe, right? We're, like you said about your safety, we're all safe and we're all healthy and we're all prepared, because patients, right? Providers can be prepared. And I wish patients were more prepared, but patients are still stuck in that conditioned reactive model. So they don't know what they don't know. So I really encourage providers to right now be really visible, be really vocal as a resource, so that if ish goes down, which ish always seems to go down, that patients have people to come to and seek and DM and all things.
Yeah, so good. And we'll end right there. And literally, I feel like I've been on a rampage about the importance of visibility. The importance of visibility. So if you didn't get nothing, well, surely you've gotten a lot out of our conversation today. But I just want to also underpin visibility. Yeah. So that being said, how about we wrap it up? And by the way, let me just say this. If y'all are hearing some breeze in the background, it's because Dr. Steele lives in St. Lucia. She's got, all the breeze going. I'm a little jealous right now.
Right. And I look so bleached out and so whatever, because it's insanely hot here. Like, the heat is like just on a whole other level. So
it's an island, so it's in the Caribbean, so it's like I'm in, like, whatever it is, I'm in. Caribbean water, I can deal with the heat.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
So that being said, like, how about
I would look like Man versus Wild when I on these things.
You're so funny. How about we end with a few of our rapid fire questions? You game?
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. All right. So share with us, Dr. Erica, who was your childhood celebrity crush?
Childhood celebrity crush. Actually, I'm embarrassed to even say it, but it was Ryder Strong from, I think it was Boy Meets World. I think that was.
Oh, I didn't watch that much, but yes, I know.
I know. And you know what? I most recently saw a photo of him. Oh my God. And he did not age well. He did not age well at all. So yeah, and it wasn't like a huge crush, but it was somebody like I remember like I bought a poster or whatever.
Right, the posters on the wall.
I thought he was cute and whatever. I thought the show was adorable, whatever. But yeah, so that would have been my childhood crush.
I love it. All right, so if well, you are on an island, but if you were stuck on a deserted island, what would be like the one thing that you absolutely had to have, non-negotiable?
I would say my husband. Just because he's my grounding, he's my peace, he's my center. But more importantly, like he can build anything, grow anything. So like for our imminent survival, I
I love it.
Our evidence.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I love that though. He's my peace and he can build stuff and keep us alive.
Right, exactly. And we can
it.
make sure we've got food, shelter, all the things.
Hey,
so
it's important.
I feel like he's my Swiss Army knife, so I'm gonna go with him.
I love that. All right. So we'll do one more. Well, we'll do two more. Okay. If you could trade places with anyone for a day, dead or alive, if you could trade places with anyone for a day, who would that be?
Oh gosh, who would I be? I would say Oprah. And the reason being is because of the visibility and reach that she has. Yeah. Not to say that I feel like she uses it in a way that I feel like is authentic, because I really don't. But I do. I really. I obviously, you got to respect the girl's hustle and what she's accomplished. She's accomplished an amazing thing. Yeah. I just, being somebody who's like real and gritty and like no makeup and the whole thing, right? I would love her audience to see more of a real side and not this kind of polished, very pretentious sort of, 3 steps to healing kind of approach. I feel like she always kind of gives this very cookie cutter sort of, it's very gimmicky and very salesy. And I still haven't,
I guess.
Right. And I still haven't forgiven her for Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil, which are now running amok. So, I think just to be able to sit in that position, to be able to have access,
massive reach, massive visibility, massive impact. So
to uphold our practices, the real practices, not ones that have been commercialized, but like from real people like us who've done the work. So
I just have to pause right here. Did you just say you don't have any makeup on? Because oh my God. I know most of you are probably listening to this on a podcast, but you can hop over to YouTube because it's also on YouTube. Your skin is flawless. Like, I would not have known you did not have. Wow. I'm impressed. Love it. You look gorgeous. Absolutely
because makeup will just like melt off here. So it's I normally wear glasses too. The glasses are, really like two articles of clothing. Like it's that massively insanely hot here. So
I'm with you on that. So I'm so with you. So okay, last thing before we end for today. What is one of your guilty pleasures?
My guilty pleasures. I would say reality TV.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, it's like the more drama, the more chaos, kind of the better. and I think, I don't know. I think it's just because my system is desensitized to drama for one. But also my environment is so peaceful and relaxed and zen all the time. I went up to New York and a girlfriend of mine had come up and she lives in Mexico and in kind of a small sleepy town, kind of like I do. And we were in New York and it was so funny. She went to Cambridge and all that kind of stuff. And she's just like, she goes, oh my God, I bumped into somebody and they cussed me out and I loved it. And it's because of that grit, right? Like here, it's so like relaxed and so peaceful and so zen and la la la, and we're on island time and all the things, right? And just the pacing. So to have like a little bit of, I think, that friction and a little bit of,
it's the dichotomy, right? It's just
it's the drama and just. I don't know. I think it just, I don't know, like not too much. Like if you get too crazy, then I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. But yeah, no, like reality TV. Yeah.
So are you like Real Housewives type of thing?
Like, like Real Housewives,
okay,
even like Love is Blind. But I don't know, lately they've been kind of trending on the younger end. And so it's, I don't know, like I actually want to see them in the dating process. And so they're more in the hookup process.
Oh, right.
So,
yep.
Yeah. So that can be a little just like, boring, but yeah, no, any kind of new wave thing that kind of comes around. I think Love Island is like the new thing. I haven't checked it out yet, but
I've watched like 2 episodes. It's not my thing, but I get it. I can definitely see the appeal. So yeah,
it's the same. It's kind of it's like my job, obviously our job is so thought-provoking, right? And so in-depth and all this stuff. So I just love kind of mind-numbing things that like I don't have to think too deeply to kind of discover and figure out what's going on. So yeah, that would be one of my guilty.
That is so cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing. You've dropped so many just great, just knowledge bombs, as I like to call them. You've educated us, you've empowered us, you have, shed light on so much. And so I just want to thank you for sharing your heart, for sharing your brilliance, for sharing the space with us here today. So thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yes. And for those of you listening or watching, thank you as well. As always, I love you. I appreciate you. And I'll see you next time on the next episode of the Charyse Williams Show. Bye for now.